see you guys in the dark.
It was my 18th birthday, and as a newly minted adult, I was enjoying my grown-upness by getting as drunk as I could. I'm with my friends in this pub in town, and we're gathered around a table. There's maybe 6 of us in total. A couple of tables over, there's a group of girls, and there's maybe 6 of them. One of them catches my eye when I look over, and she's very stunning. Long red hair, bright blue eyes, full pink lips. I look away and carry on drinking, but she keeps catching my eye again and again. We do that thing where you both catch each other looking, then pretend you weren't looking at all whilst going and doing it even more. Eventually I need another drink, so I get up and head to the bar, and I notice her doing the same. At this point, I notice her body. She's short, but with a great figure. Breasts that are good and round and big. Small waist, wide hips, great butt, everything. I'm pretty much fully in lust with this girl, and we've not even met yet. We get to the bar, and I let her order before me. She gets something like a lemonade, unusual for that pub, but I figured someone's got to be a designated driver, and it's probably her. I order a pint for myself, turn around to head back, and she's there, right behind me. We get to chatting, and she tells me her name's Helena. I make some kind of Shakespeare joke, and she laughs, and I'm in. The rest of the night, I talk to mostly her, though it's cool, because the other lads have descended on the group of girls at the other table. The evening wears on, and eventually we get to the, well, are you going to do it, or just agree to meet each other again, or screw off and pretend this never happened stage. We go for the former. We go back to my place, being very careful not to wake my parents up because I'm still, well, shit, and live at home. And have a great night. Long story short, we ended up going out for a while, always out somewhere. Then headed back to mine. Eventually we drift into actually being a couple. From there we start to do more couple-y things, and that's when the crazy leaks in. She starts arguing with me about every little thing imaginable. From not saying hello in the right way, to not being there to wake her up at precisely 6:01 in the morning, or whatever. Every argument escalates into whatever the heck she decides to rant about, and always ends the same way. She threatens to dump me. I coax her back. We kiss, do things. Everyone's happy. After maybe a month and a half of this or so, I get bored of it all. I do the decent thing, and take her out for coffee to a cozy little cafe. Tell her in the best way that I can that we're not working out, and it's all pretty surprisingly admissible. Except it's not. The phone calls start, always from a private number, always of crying. At first to my mobile, then to my home phone, always a private number, always crying. I know she's faking it, because if I never answer the phone, my parents would have a friendly little chat, then hand the phone to me, and immediately it's like the Niagara Falls of freaking tears. Then the emails. Weird, ranty emails of gibberish and threats and pleading to take me back. Hundreds of them. There'd be days when they'd come every 5 minutes. Days when there'd be nothing at all. I changed my number to get rid of her. Got a whole new phone number. And we went X directory with my number. Changed my email too. I still got them for about 6 months after, but eventually they just stopped. And that should have been the end of it. Little did I know. I started going online on various forums, games, etc. On one such forum, I struck up a friendly conversation with this girl on there. I know she was a girl because she showed me pictures of herself with a little scribbled, "Hi OFAB, I'm random username," and whatever, which is pretty conclusive, as evidence goes. We had a great time chatting and whatever, and we had so much in common, it was completely insane. Like, not only did she like the same things I did, but she was this utterly stunning little brunette, like a proper English rose. Anyway, eventually we started going out, having a little Skype chats. Things started out well, but over time, she got a bit too clingy for my liking. She'd ask me where I'd been if I was a minute late, or got jealous if she'd seen a picture of me on Facebook with another girl. She got upset at the slightest thing, or angry if I mentioned another girl's name, even if it was, "Oh, Louise said she liked my work," when Louise was the lecturer of my course. Eventually, I got angry, dumped her, and we had a nice clean break. I avoided those forums, changed my Skype, and that was that. Not learning my lesson at all. I went on different forums, found another girl, and got to know her too. This one was a tanned blonde, all boobs and legs, and sexy, Australian accent as well. She liked most of the same things I did, with enough difference that we would teach each other how to do things, how to appreciate things, how to like things. She was laid back too, and compared to the latest ex, she was a breath of fresh air. If I got on Skype half an hour later than I said I would, she would be cool with it. If I spent a conversation talking about my lecturer, using her name in every dozen words, she'd bitch along with me, making me laugh, making me smile, making me love. Eventually, I talked of meeting her, though it was a long way from England to Sydney and expensive as anything. I was willing to fly to meet her because I wanted to see her face to face, to see the places she told me about, to go to the clubs and bars and restaurants she told me she loved. I wanted to hold her in my arms and kiss her and actually have a proper girlfriend again. She immediately broke up with me, saying I'd only be disappointed with the reality. Then came the latest girl. She was Canadian, brunette, something of a rock chick, completely different to my usual kind of girl. We met on some chat site I used when I was bored, and got talking, swapped details, etc. She introduced me to a ton of music I'd never even considered listening to, and I did the same to her. If I complained about something, she told me to man the hell up. If I turned up late, she told me it was fine because time is something the man makes us believe in. She was the coolest freaking girl I'd ever known. Again, we dated on Skype and whatever. Again, we talked about meeting. Again, she broke up with me, saying that it had all just been in fun for whatever. It was cool, it was admissible, and fine, and that was that. All this happened over a couple of years, with me being with each girl somewhere between 4 to 6 months, and my between times maybe 1 to 3 months. I was a quick worker, and screw the rebound stuff. Anyway, I came back to my hometown for the holiday. I think it was reading week, or something like that. And being on campus then, I was wandering along the road, when who would I see but Psycho Girl. Rather than avoiding her, I carried on walking. She came up to me, said she had something to tell me, and we needed to talk, desperately. I made all kinds of excuses, but each one she batted aside until she wore me down. We went to the pub, and she told me something that basically terrified me. She hadn't wanted to give up on me, so she'd use what she knew of me to find places I'd go online. She'd made different accounts, lots of different accounts, in hopes that she'd find me, so she could talk to me and try to win me back. Except she'd make fake accounts, so I wouldn't immediately ignore her. See where this is going? Yep, every one of the girls I'd dated has been her, using pictures of friends, using fake accents, pretending not to know things she knew. She'd follow me across at least a dozen different websites, stalked me across hundreds of posts and threads, and all the time had made me believe I was talking to completely different women. I didn't date anyone for a couple of years after that. I don't know what came of her after that. She sort of disappeared from my life, and I haven't seen her since. I went out briefly with a couple of other girls, but only ones I'd met face to face, who didn't look anything like her at all. I don't know if she still follows me about online, or if she does, if she knows anything about this account. But if you're looking at this, hi Helena. I once dated a stalker. However, what makes my story unusual is that she wasn't stalking me, although it ended up becoming my problem, as you'll see. Even though I wasn't the victim of her stalking, I didn't necessarily have a great relationship with her either. I met this girl, let's call her Annie, on a forum devoted to a video game we all loved. There were discussions about the game, and some light roleplay. This was about a decade ago, and I was young, stupid, had some problems that led to other poor decisions in my life, and had just ended my first serious relationship, which is due to this ex's bipolar disorder. Would have been an emotional roller coaster for anyone. Online, Annie was as sweet as could be, and was especially sympathetic about what had happened in my last relationship, claiming she had just gotten out of a chaotic relationship herself. We talked a lot, and we jokingly suggested getting together. Eventually, a major anime convention on the East Coast rolled around, and many members of the forum were attending, including myself, Annie, and the other person in this story, who I'll call Ron. I'd spoken to Ron a bit before the convention on the forum and AIM, and hadn't particularly liked him, but I didn't hate him either. He just seemed pretty standoffish and had a short temper. While he could be fun to talk to sometimes, I had to make sure to only talk about the sort of things we would on the forum, as you never knew what would set him off. The convention came, and Annie, Ron, and I all met in person for the first time, as well as some other members of the forum. I was there with another group, including my best friend, and had stated beforehand I'd be spending most of my time with them, but that I'd try to hang out with them when I could for photo ops and the like. However, upon meeting Annie, she immediately latched on to me, going on about how I was much cuter than she expected, and I was getting even sweeter in person than online. In hindsight, I can see she was playing on the vulnerability she knew I had, but at the time, I was immediately smitten. As a result, I spent most of the convention with her. I also spent a lot of time with Ron, who ended up being nastier in person than he was online, but for some reason, Annie adored him. Again, 20/20 hindsight, I think she thought that by fawning over me, she'd make him jealous, but he wasn't interested in the first place, so it didn't work. Well, the weekend came to an end. Near to the end of it, Ron was removed by security and banned from ever attending another after he beat the crap out of a girl who had tried to hug him. She had declined to press charges since he had asked her not to hug him, so she took part of the blame. With Ron out of the way now, Annie turned her focus entirely to me, or so I thought. By the end of the weekend, Annie had declared herself my girlfriend. You know how people talk about red flags? Annie might as well have been a living red flag. She called the shots throughout her short relationship, and when I said that, I mean I literally had no say in anything. She told me what our relationship status was, and when. She told me we were going out. Within days of that, she told me we were engaged. Because she lived in Ontario, and I lived in Maine, she refused to move for me. She demanded I move to Ohio with her. I didn't move, but I had begun making plans to do so when she abruptly told me, "This is all happening too fast. We're over." Well, no crap, it was moving fast. In the span of a week, we went from dating to engaged. And in less than 2 months, it was over. It was a wild ride, to say the least. And although I was upset at first when it ended, when I was in a better place mentally and emotionally, I was just immensely relieved to have her out of my life, or so I thought. The sign of things to come was when Annie admitted to me that the relationship with her girlfriend back home that she had claimed she had ended badly actually hadn't ended at all. But she totally intended to break it off before I got to Ohio. Shortly after that was our breakup, and then I started to get messages and calls from Ron. Apparently, although Annie was posting publicly everywhere on various social media her relationship status with me, she was actually bombarding him with instant messages, texts, and phone calls, professing her love to him and promising that she would drop me in a hot minute if he gave the word. He repeatedly told her he wasn't interested, blocked her on AIM, blocked her number, and left the forum. Ron messaged and called me to inform me of this. Although I told him repeatedly we'd already broken up, he seemed to believe Annie's behavior was my fault, and that it was my job to rein her in, although he never came out and told me so. I think Annie was telling him lies about me. As I later found out, he was trash-talking me elsewhere. Somehow, this convinced him that I was somehow responsible for Annie's stalking, and that I could put a kibosh on it if I wanted. I repeatedly told him we'd broken up, we weren't even speaking anymore, and if she was posing a serious problem, to call the cops. So here I am, with Annie stalking Ron, Ron blaming me for stalking while semi-stalking me. I have no idea how to get out of this. Annie actually moved to the state that Ron lived in, and started running into him in public places everywhere he went. She followed him home and would try to visit, insisting that she wasn't pursuing him. They were just friends. He told her to screw off in no certain terms. But undeterred, Annie still kept coming to his house, sometimes when he wasn't there, and Ron was still somehow convinced this was all my fault, so it was my responsibility to fix it. I changed my number eventually, as well as my online presence, so that he wouldn't be able to find me on social media or the like. I really don't know how things ended with Ron and Annie. As I said, I eventually found Ron trash-talking me elsewhere, but it was for reasons unrelated to Annie. For 2 years, this guy carried a grudge against me because of my brief association with a crazy girl who was fixated on him. About a decade later, I've seen no sign of Ron or Annie anywhere online. I even went to the convention again the year after I met Annie, and although I had some issues regarding another relationship while there, I never saw Ron or Annie. So Ron, while I hope the stalking thing ends peacefully and nothing bad happened to you, and Annie, let's not meet again. So I matched with this girl on Tinder, Gina. Gina and I went on our first date on January 26th. She knew I was out of a long relationship and still maintained occasional contact with my ex, Mary. Gina and I officially started calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend around mid-February. 3 days ago, while I'm in the shower, she goes through my phone and reads old messages between Mary and I. A few casual ones, and a few very affectionate ones from before Gina and I started seeing each other or even met. Gina packs all of her things and is headed out the door when I get out of the shower, with my phone. She texts a bunch of people saying things like, "I'm an asshole," and Mary is a manipulative girl. She hacks into my Facebook and makes a post of calling Mary a whole slew of names, and blocks and unfriends several of my friends, and does a similar thing with Twitter. I get a hold of a coworker's phone and use it to try and contact her and sign back into my Facebook. Once she realizes I did this, she changed my passwords, and my email's passwords as well. Eventually, she tells me she wants to talk this out, and to meet at my place. I play along so I can get my phone and passwords back. She gives me my phone and makes me call Mary and tell her I'm cutting her out of my life. I get a hold of Mary earlier and warned her something like this might happen. We both have a background in theater, so we had a very convincing argument over speakerphone so Gina can hear. Gina gives me my passwords, and I immediately change them. I tell her she should leave and doesn't understand why I want her out of my life. She goes home very upset about me breaking up with her over this. Gina starts posting and commenting on my Facebook, and I block her. I blocked her on everything, and she begins calling me over and over, not saying anything when I try to pick up the phone. I block her number. I start receiving the same calls over and over from a Colorado number. Eventually, I go to my phone provider and change my number. I also changed the locks on my door in case she took a key. Next day, she makes a Facebook page calling me a piece of shit and Mary a manipulative woman, and she hacks into my alternative Twitter account. I tell her if she calls me one more time or posts one more thing about anybody I know, I'm calling the police on her. I get an email saying that my application for a credit card has been approved. I call the bank and tell them what's happening, and they put a freeze on the account. Several friends have told me to call the police, and I finally realize enough is enough. The police come and tell me that she has some sort of file with them and that her name isn't even Gina. It's something completely different, though. They issue a warning of harassment, and if she tries to contact me again, I call the police and she gets arrested. On Monday, I have to call the fraud people and get all my accounts frozen and investigated and stuff. I realize this is a lot, but this is actually a pretty bare-bone version of this story. Basically, the reason I'm posting this is now the police get involved, and I have my locks changed, and my number changed, and all is solved. I'm starting to feel the emotional damage of being abused and harassed by someone I was really starting to care about, and I don't know how to deal with it. Someone on the other post called bullshit on this, so I proved them with some screenshots of the Facebook page she made of me, and the phone number she was calling me from that I have now blocked. I'm an aspiring comedian, so that's why the page calls me one. If you want some other form of proof, feel free to ask me. I know it sounds crazy, but that's because it is. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.